RotoGrinders. Welcome to the DFS pregame show. Welcome to the RotoGrinders Today. Hold on, I'm trying to tweet out. I never get these tweet notifications that this stuff has gone out. But let me make sure so the people on Twitter know that I am live. But welcome to RotoGrinders Today. I'm Jordan Cooper, aka BlenderHD, BlenderHD. If you want to follow me on Twitter, and it's Tuesday, October 3rd. We're talking a little bit about MLB playoffs. We got a 4-game slate on DraftKings today. A little bit about the Soccer Champions League slate. We got soccer projections here at RotoGrinders, as well as a prop/sports betting EV question. How to think like a profitable sports bettor, very similar to how to think like a professional DFS player. It's all the same types of concepts. And if I'm talking game theory, I want to have this guy on. It's Alex SONTY. Does a lot of the baseball content here, also over at Fangraphs as well. Alex, are you relieved or you're upset that the regular season in baseball is over?
I'm intensely relieved. I had a rough year on the streets playing. I think it was my first losing MLB season since 2015. So that was a little rough. And then just the content. I mean, the content is a grind too. I was writing, doing expert survey and writing articles. And I do football. So once they start overlapping in September, I've done this. I think this is the 4th year that I've done both of them. And September's a real tough grind in terms of content. I mean, I don't know how you do it with the shows every single day and keeping up with stuff, but I just having the headspace for both at the same time was a little rough this year. So I'm relieved to just focus on football and have fun with baseball.
Well, but let's have fun today on the 4-game MLB slate on DraftKings. All the games are spread out. So we got, 3 o'clock game, 4:30 Eastern, 7 o'clock Eastern, and 8 o'clock Eastern. I'm not sure we'll necessarily get like all the lineups by lock. You have to assume the teams are, we're talking about playoffs. They're going to play their best lineups, best, their best pitchers, best everything. One thing I noticed on what was that?
Everyone's putting out their A+ lineup.
Right.
We assume.
One thing I do notice though, because everyone is, putting out their, their best pitchers, I guess, in some sense, the totals are quite low. So we'd see here the highest total on the slate is the Brewers 4.57. We got the Phillies at 4.16. We got the Rays at 4.09, and then everyone else is under 4. From a DFS perspective, like it's a shorter slate. It's not one of these, normal like 9-10 game type of slates. What are we more inclined to do from a roster construction perspective on a 4-game slate where it's quite possible like none of these teams score more than 5 runs?
It's also quite possible that none of these pitchers go 6 innings. So right there, I don't want to spend a lot of money on pitcher. And they've actually priced it down on DraftKings, so we don't have to spend, 11.5 on Gausman. So it's like, okay, Gausman might only go 5.5, but here he's only 9,800. So
yeah, they made the pricing so like you could kind of stack any team you want and play whatever pitchers you want to some extent. There are always cheap peaches in some of these stacks to do so. But the question are you forcing in the need for a 5-man stack on DraftKings because it's actually there's less teams and it's less likely that one actually puts up 8, 9, 10 runs. I know Dean I make fun of him with the 1-1-1-1-1-1-1. I'm not saying to go to that extent, but I think I'm much more open to lineups that are 4 2s, 3 3s, stuff like that. And to me, you could, I think a lot of people are going to maybe attack, Brandon Pfaadt or something like that, right? Because a lot of these pitchers from a name value perspective are pretty good. Is that necessarily the way to go? Would you rather have like a 5-man Phillies stack with guys like, you have to throw in a Johan Rojas or a Christian Posh at a 5-man stack? Or would you rather just like, I'll take 3 hitters from this team, 3 hitters from that team, 2 hitters from the other team, and most likely, 5 guys from one team aren't going to be, the ceiling potential there is lower, and the roster construction dynamics of the field are more likely to actually stack 5 guys.
See, I'm going to push back on that a little bit. I think the opposite is going to happen. I think because we have Gausman, Glasnow, Lopez, Wheeler, Burns. I mean, that's just big names. Then Luzardo's got a lot of strikeouts in there. I think people are going to be afraid and say, "Well, look at these totals. No one's going to really get broken down to 8, 9, 10 runs. So I want to take 3 from this pitcher, 3 from this pitcher, 2 from this pitcher." So I think the contrarian build is going to be outside of a 5-man Brewers stack to at least go 4-4 or 4-3-1 or 5-2-1. 5, I don't think people are going to full stack and double stack the slate very much. And people don't stack as much as they should as it is. We know this, we've
Right.
talked about this before. So I think they're going to do it. I think they're less inclined when they're really good, when there's good pitching. I think people are going to say, do I really want to play 5 hitters against Tyler Glasnow? Do I really want to play 5 hitters against Kevin Gausman? Do I really want to play 5 hitters against Zach Wheeler? I think people are just going to say no. And they're going to tinker around and spread out, and it's going to look like grandma's teeth.
Well, we see here in the Plate IQ optimal as of right now with our projections that will be updated throughout the day. So obviously, as lineups get confirmed and everything, weather, umpires, that type of stuff, our projections team, our data science people behind the scenes, they take care of all that for us. We see Wheeler and Glasnow and the top here, and then you get like Milwaukee, Toronto, Minnesota, and I mean Toronto against Pablo Lopez. I mean there are times that Pablo Lopez does not look good. I mean
There
there've been games where Pablo Lopez strikes out 12. I'm more inclined. I mean I've been mostly for the past 3 months been taking Lopez unders almost every start.
Mhm.
I mean if he's going to be 22% owned, which I mean is not like high on this slate, but if I were to attack any pitcher that isn't like, I'm not attacking Brandon Pfaadt or something like that with the
No,
Milwaukee, which I think will be the
absolutely, I'm
chalky
not doing that
option,
at all.
right?
I'm acting out the Brewers in terms of a stack. If I stumble on a one-off, I'll stumble on a one-off. But
But how about Toronto?
I was just about to say, pull up Toronto, just isolate Toronto for the screen share. I was shocked by their ownership. Are you shocked? Take a look at these numbers.
Well, because it's
That's a lot
it's
higher than I
pricing.
thought it would
I mean,
be.
look at the pricing. I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of the reason here. It's like when all these team totals are fairly low. I mean, when you could get a stack here, when you could pick out, a Kevin Biggio at the second base position that's weak and get him for 2,800. You got all these lefties against Lopez. Brandon Belt's cheap and is going to probably bat higher up in the order. Springer's only 4,600. I mean,
But this is what I'm
Guerrero's
saying. All
4,900. I
the
mean, these
pitching
guys
is
are from their
the,
baseline talent standpoint, they're cheap.
Jordan. The pitching is free. I understand why they're getting owned that way, but do I want to go after the second highest owned team on the slate? Because I could get it if we were talking about 3 aces and 5 bums, and the 3 aces are in the 10K range. It's like, well, they're cheap. Value begets ownership, and maybe I just have to eat the ownership. Um, when all the pitching is cheap, I don't even want to play the 9K guys. I could be fine with Wheeler and Burns. Do I really need to save even more? Compound savings with chalk.
But how about Minnesota? I mean,
I
Gausman's
love
going to be
Minnesota.
owned. I think Minnesota. I mean, you have a similar dynamic here that outside of Royce Lewis at 5,500, which seems a bit excessive. Uh, these guys are cheap. I mean, they strike out a lot,
A lot.
but Gausman gets into trouble also.
He does. There are 4 pitchers on the slate. First thing I noticed when I pulled it up on my spreadsheet. 4 pitchers on the slate had barrel rates of over 9% this season. Luzardo 9.3%, Gausman 9.8%, Glasnow 11.6%, and Pfaadt 11.7%. So these are guys who are all getting hit really hard, and Glasnow and Gausman are going to get some ownership. There isn't just like a magical spot outside of probably the Brewers, and I don't want to play the Brewers with that ownership. Why not just attack Glasnow and Gausman and
But I
Luzardo?
mean, that's the ultra leverage move to attack both of them in the same lineup.
Why not? They get hit the hardest. They got both teams have thumpers. We're not talking about the Guardians here, where no one actually hits a fucking home run. Sorry, I shouldn't say that on the air. We're talking about teams that can hit a lot of home runs, and we don't need them to win. We don't need them to win 10-1. We already talked about this. They could score 5 or 6 runs on Gausman or Glasnow and hit 3 or 4 home runs.
And that would win on a 4-game slate.
That would smash.
Michael Townsend in the chat says it would be ironic if Toronto, who hasn't hit all year, suddenly went bonkers in October.
I'm a little salty on that one.
But in DFS, I mean, same thing for the props. Like Toronto, I mean, I've gotten a lot of like over total bases, over hits, runs, RBIs. You know, shows his positive edge, and then it's just you watch someone like Brandon Belt strike out 3 times in a row, and Vladdy strike out looking on a pitch that could have easily been a home run, and it gets, people at 6 months of MLB DFS, people just get like, nope, I'm Xing out the Blue Jays, Xing out the Yankees, Xing out all these teams that are supposed to be good, but they're
gutless,
not.
as Kirk Dees would say.
Right, gutless. So you're more inclined Minnesota, Texas,
and I was surprised by Phillies ownership. Isolate Phillies ownership. I thought they were going to be higher owned. A lefty gives us just power. I mean,
this is just early. This isn't like low owned. I mean,
it isn't low, but I think I expected the Phillies and the Blue Jays ownership to kind of flip a little bit. But the pricing, it makes sense. But I thought because the pitching was so cheap, I thought that people would spend up. I thought the algorithm would still have people spending up a little bit in this 4K range for Philly.
Yeah, but how do you get all of them in? The problem is, how do you get all of them in? Trey Turner's ownership is high only because shortstop is a much scarcer position. But I mean, how do you play Harper, Schwarber, Turner, Realmuto, Castellanos? How do you do? You can't do it. You have to play one of the cheaper Philly guys to even like stack the team. I think the ownership, I mean, to get Schwarber and Harper lefty on lefty, especially at sub 10% owned on a 4-game slate, I don't know if stacking them, I'm not sure, but I mean, both these guys have ceilings, and it's not like Luzardo's going to pitch the whole game anyway. He gives up barrels even to lefties, so these guys is one-offs I have no problem with, but the problem is that stacking Philly, even with you say that the pitching is cheap, but I mean, it's not cheap enough to stack three guys at 5K and 2 guys at high 4Ks. Like, we don't have some 6K pitcher to use.
So as you were talking, I did fit in 3 Phillies pretty easily with Minnesota.
What Minnesota guys are you playing?
Correa, Kirilloff, Julian.
Okay, so that's
Michael
a little
Taylor.
bit cheaper. Yeah, you fit in the scarce spot in the shortstop and in right. So you're not playing Trey Turner, and then you're playing second base with Julian, right? The scarcer positions.
Which do I really? I mean, I don't think we need Trey Turner against a lefty. I mean, lefty's a little bit better at holding runners anyway. He's a very good hitter against lefties. Don't get me wrong, but we want his speed to work for that price. Because what is he? 5'4"? What's his price? 5'4"?
He's 5'9".
5'9". Yeah, I want his speed.
Willie Adames probably will be a little higher owned at 4,400 against Fat for Milwaukee. But who's playing Seager? I mean, we have STL Cards.
So you can fit in. You can fit in again back to Minnesota. You can fit Minnesota and Texas together. You just go after Gossman and Glasnow. They fit together pretty well for a 4-4 stack.
Well, you're either going to win a lot or you're.
I'm looking at this for the first. I'm looking at this for the first time.
Right, I know this. I'm
clicking around and
how you're supposed to. Right.
Yeah, and I just fit a 4-4. Garver is not in the lineup, so slip on down to Jonah Heim, was probably a little bit cheaper. I'll leave 300 on the table. Yeah, I've got Texas and Minnesota with Wheeler and Burns, and I just clicked around in about a minute and figured out this lineup. I think it's a pretty strong lineup.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't think we have crunch time today, right, for MLB playoffs. I don't think so.
I don't know.
In the middle of the day.
Up to them.
Right,
media schedule's above my pay grade.
Yeah, but we do have a Discord. We have an MLB channel in our Discord. You don't even have to be a premium member. You could join rotogrinders.com/Discord. You could always tag Alex or me in there. Also, the Bat channel if you're a Bat subscriber for Cardi's projections. So you join us in there for the MLB playoff slate. But But yeah,
And honestly, I play poker 5, 6 times a week, sessions a week. And if I'm playing poker, I'm in the Discord. I'm chatting with people. So chatting with the people.
right, because you're in front of your 24 tables of poker on your screens.
I do 4, sir. I'm 40 years old. I can't do 16 tables anymore.
Well, talking about poker, if you came from poker, one of the most one of the reasons why a lot of poker players are good at DFS is because DFS and sports betting and any card game, any games that mix skill and chance involve a concept such as expected value and thinking probabilistically about outcomes rather than absolutely about
Mhm.
outcomes. So it's not a matter of like, oh, well, Milwaukee, like on this slate, like, oh, you're not playing the Milwaukee stack. It's like, not that you're not saying that they're not going to do well. It's just in comparison to the payout that you will get at their ownership,
Yes.
it's not worth it. It's like, betting on a six-sided die roll and only getting 4-1 odds. It's like, even if you could predict kind of better than the most what number is going to come out, you're not getting paid the proper odds for what the result is going to be. And that's very similar to what ownership is in DFS. As Alex, one thing you've said that, you know, conceptually it makes sense, is that ownership is a cost. Salary isn't a cost. Ownership is a cost.
Yes. It is, because when you take on ownership, when you absorb the Blue Jays ownership, putting it back into the context of today's slate, sure, they're all cheap, but you're paying to match 5, 6% of the field and what they're doing, 10% of the field. If you stack them up with Milwaukee, I mean, you're just paying the rake at that point.
At
I would
this ownership.
rather, yeah,
Right.
and I would
At this
rather
ownership,
usually when
if I told Alex, if I told you that Milwaukee was going to be twice as less owned, 10% owned, your attitude would
then
be Milwaukee.
yeah,
Why aren't people playing Milwaukee? They have the highest team total. I'm just going to start jamming
exactly.
these guys in.
I jam it in. But I always tell, then people say, so what do I do from here? When I tell them ownership is a cost, I say, spend up a little in salary for lesser ownership. It'll pay you back. It's like it's kind of like getting a loan, right? Like you get a loan to make a wager, to make a high EV wager, and then you get it back and then some with interest, and then you pay back whoever you owe. It just you're gonna get it back when you pay down if you pay up a little bit of salary for a good gain in ownership, you'll get it back.
The same thing for projection. You're like, if you're gonna pay in projection, meaning that, like, oh, I'm gonna play a lineup that is 3 or 4 points lower in projection. It's like, well, what do I get in return from it? I better get lower ownership. If I don't get
Better, yeah,
lower
you have
ownership,
to.
then this trade is not beneficial to me.
You have to. You absolutely have to get something out of it. Or you get correlation, which correlation is a boost in itself too, right? Like especially in baseball. Correlation is like adding projected points. So not even on like a linear scale. Sometimes it can be exponential. The
Hmm.
difference between stacking a chalk team 2 ways and just stacking that chalk team 5 ways, and you end up including one or two guys who aren't very high owned, and then you couple it up with something else. But we've talked about this about the Braves. So a lot of people, the field was largely starting to stack the Braves big time in July, and it rode through the end of September. The field was still only stacking 2 Braves at a time. You look at so many of these lineups, and it's just like 2 Braves at a time, 3 Braves at a time, 2 Braves, 2 Braves, 2 Braves.
Only because they
Whereas
were
the
expensive
sharper,
and people couldn't
because they're
afford.
so expensive.
They didn't want to play a $5,800 pitcher and hope
Exactly.
for the best.
The sharper players, though, whose lineups I was looking at, they were going 4 or 5 every single time. 4 or 5 every single time, and finding the value somewhere else, a pitcher, and they were using the correlation to offset the projected ownership of the individual players.
Hmm. That's the topics that I talk about on the Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports. 15-hour audio DFS masterclass, as well as the advanced players course, right? With the Excel tools from James McCool. You get it at theoryofdfs.com. And you most gracefully have like the featured testimonial on the main page. So
People have
thank you.
asked me if you paid me for that.
People have
I've
asked you
had
if I paid you
I've
for
asked
that.
I've had 4 people, because I've suggested it to people that said, "Oh, were you did Jordan pay you to endorse the product? I was like, no, I bought it. I really liked it. And I sent him an email saying how much I liked it.
Right?
It's that
People are so
simple.
People are so cynical in this space,
Yeah, they are
right?
cynical.
I
Well,
mean,
there are a
at
lot of
least I'm
scammers in this space.
right. At least on my shows, like I eat my own dog food.
Yeah.
Everything I show on this show and on all my shows is stuff that I actually use. It may not be what I only use, but I'm never going to show and I'm never going to say anything that I don't think is of value or something like oh yeah, here's lineup HQ, but I actually use my own optimizer. It's like no, I use lineup HQ. It's like here's the bat projections that from Cardi. It's like those are the projections I use. I may look at other projections. I may aggregate some projections. I may change ownership a little. I may take a look and see around and whatever, but everything I show on my shows, I use. I did that's there's no reason for me to
Well,
say it's like, oh, here's this piece of content here at RotoGrinders. I want you to read it, even though I don't. Like it
well,
doesn't make any sense to me.
in what we're doing here and the articles I write, I think skin in the game is so important. Like I've been playing baseball for 6 months straight, pretty much every single day. And you think on a Tuesday afternoon after a football weekend, I want to play in a 4-game slate with Kevin Gossman and Tyler Glasnow and no bums on there. No, but I'm going to plunk $100 into it because I'm on the show and I'm talking to you people about it. So I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. That's what we
Talking about
do.
putting your money where your mouth is. We talk about expected value, how to think. These going through problems, even if they're not related to sports, even if they're not related to betting or DFS, helps you continuously always think when approached with a problem to think probabilistically, think in terms of expected value. So I tweeted this out yesterday. I wanted to gauge. I didn't know, right? Because Kentucky just opened sports betting up on Thursday, and even though I've been on PrizePicks and Underdog for over a year, profitably, now that I have access to more outs and more markets, and don't have to hit 3, 4, 5 in a given day for like 9x and 25x, that I get a better price betting it straight on DraftKings, FanDuel, Caesars, wherever. So I'm always going to go for where's the best price, where's the best number. Like that's if I get more outs, that's what I'm going to do. So on these sites, when you sign up, and also throughout the course of every day, sometimes depending on your account, you'll get credits or bonus
Hmm.
bets, right?
I got one last weekend.
Right. Okay. So people, the amount of people that don't understand the expected value of bonus bets astounds me, because it's actually a fairly simple problem. It's not complicated math or anything. So like if you got, Alex, a $100 bonus bet, okay. So
Hmm.
basically the site is giving you, here's a free $100. They don't want to use the term free because it's not free, right?
They're bonus bets. Yeah.
Right, they're bonus bets. So here's $100. You don't get to keep the $100, right? You just now have access to any bet on the site that you can put $100 towards, which means whatever you win from the bet, you get to keep, but that original $100 you don't get, right? Typically, if you're going
Hmm.
to bet, $100 on a plus 150, you're going to win $150 and then also get your $100, right? Because you bet your
Hmm.
own your real cash on it. So you're going to get $250 in total back, right?
Hmm.
On this, you wouldn't. You would just get the $150. You just get whatever
Yeah,
the
just the
odds that are
150.
posted. Okay.
Yeah.
So in that case, Alex, for a bonus bet, right, from an expected value standpoint, would you rather bet it on a minus 400 money line, right? Because remember, you have access to everything, right? Minus 400
Except for
money
listing.
line,
Okay.
minus 150 spread or total, the Seahawks to win by 2.5, whatever, or a total 47.5 over under. And it was, and these odds are efficient odds. So we're just assuming that
Okay.
those are the true odds. There's no there's no edge in certain one. Like there's all a completely efficient market.
Okay.
Minus 400 on a money line, minus 150 on a spread or a total, plus 150 on a spread or a total, or plus 400 on a money line. So basically, a heavy favorite to win, a heavy underdog to win, or something in the middle that has like totals or spreads that are, obviously much more efficient markets where, the spread is 7, you're getting, you're going to find some bet in between that range that is fairly efficient. So which one for this bonus bet would you put your $100 bonus bet on for if you wanted the most profitability, the highest expected value?
I kind of had this bet this weekend. So I was offered a $100 bonus bet to FanDuel, and I haven't touched the FanDuel sportsbook in probably 4 or 5 weeks. So I decided this was on Saturday. So I was like, I'm gonna watch the fight tonight. Fuck it, why not just like put it on the fight? So Canelo was I think minus 500, and his opponent Charlo was I believe plus 320. So I just I did a parlay with Charlo at 320 for the whole $100.
But people would look at you and go, well, that's not going to happen that often. So like the site is giving you a bonus bet. They're saying here's $100 to bet on anything. So many people out there, I'm telling you, because I see it on Twitter. They'll take a bonus bet and go, I'm putting it on a minus 400 college football team. And they get their $20, right? They're $25 or whatever. And a lot of the time, and they go, well, isn't that nice? I get a nice $25 into my account. And they don't realize that that FanDuel, in that case, their trading team is high-fiving each other.
Yeah, so what I was doing was I ended up parlaying it with some NFL stuff, and I lost because Charlie, I didn't even really follow it, but I think my total, I did a 4-leg, 3 NFL bets and the Charlo bet, and I think it came out to about plus 1,200.
But why the long shot? I'm obviously leading you, right? I mean, it's quite obvious here that most people put it on some big favorite or some, minus whatever it is. Why is it that it's like the site's giving you like $100 bonus bet and you're like, yeah, I'm going to put something together that's like plus 1,200? Like, even if we assume everything is efficient, like,
this was actually a hyper
why do you do
efficient
that?
line too, because I was looking around and some of the research I did, it was looking like 80 to 85% chance that Canelo would win. So it only came out to like $2 expected value if I actually took the bet and won. Because at minus 500, you're talking maybe 83%. I wasn't going to win much money if I made that bet anyway.
But the main
Because
reason here,
the payout was so slow, the payout was so low that the times when I lose, I lose the full 100. But the times that I win, I'm only
you don't
getting.
lose any. The key
Well, I
point,
don't lose it.
Alex,
Yeah, I guess I
is
don't.
you don't
Well,
lose and you don't lose
I,
anything. You don't get. People don't understand, right?
wasn't
Well,
there an opportunity cost? Oh, I get what you're saying, but I'm talking about the
right. But
opportunity
you're
cost of
going off
gauging the
on things that
expected
don't
value.
matter anymore.
Okay,
You
I
do
get what you're
not
saying.
get the $100 back if you win the bet. You do not. The key point of all of this is you don't get the $100 back. So if you just
It's even
simply
worse.
do an expected value calculation, which is very simple, $100 bonus, no sweat, with the stake not returned. So let's say you put it on minus 1,000 odds. All of these are efficient odds. Minus 1,000 converted to probability is 90%. But the $100, like if you win this bet, you will get $10, right? So you have a 90% chance at $10.
Well, you pretty much
Minus
have my bet
500
there.
is an 83% chance. So you see here that plus 1,000 odds only happens 10% of the time, but you get paid $1,000 because you're not getting the 100. Like if the $100 came back to you, then yeah, sure. Then you could put it on anything and sure, do it on minus 1,000 because you would have a 90% chance at $110. You would have an 83% chance at $120. You would have a 75% chance at $133. Like that $100 makes a big difference in comparison to 10, 20, 33, and 50. But since you do not get that credit in cash back with your winnings, you should within reason, whatever the amount of money means to you, putting it on the longest shot that you're willing to put it on, as long as it's reasonably efficient. I don't put it on something that's plus 1,000 that should be plus 50,000. I mean, like if the odds are that far off. But if everything was efficient, like I use my bonus bets typically in like this 200, 300, 500 range, right? If I find something that's worth doing or plugging things in together, I use this poll. I did 3 different ones, right? Because the first one had minus 400, minus 1, all these money line, spread total, just to see if people are like, well, the money line and the spread totals matter. It doesn't, right? As long as the lines are efficient, it doesn't matter what it is. And then I also did one where it's like, would you rather do $25 bets at minus 400? 10 $10 bets at minus 150, 5 $20 bets at plus 150, and $100 bet at plus 400, thinking in their mind going, well, if I just do 20 of them, I'm going to win most of them. So my variance is going to be like none of this matters. It's you put it on the longest shot out of this bunch is going to have the highest expected value. And then even the third one, I'm like money line at minus 900. Spread total at minus 150, 2-leg parlay at plus 150, 3-leg SGP at plus 900. And the only reason I did minus 900 and plus 900, so no one can make the case that like SGP holds are like very high. So like, oh, you'd rather do the 2-leg parlay because SGP is at so it's like, oh, let's make it ridiculous. People look at this and go, oh, I've been told parlays and same game parlays are sucker bets. Like you shouldn't be playing. It's like, with your regular money, yeah, maybe that is true. But they're giving you a bonus bet. So like I'd much rather play a 20% hold SGP at plus 900 than a 4% hold at minus 900, because even with taking into account the hold, like I'm not getting the $100 back. I'm not getting the credit back. So having a 98% chance. Like, imagine you having a 98% chance of winning the bet. That's 20 cents of expected value on 100. So imagine you went out and you said, I'm going to put it on a minus 50. That's what minus 50,000 is, like 98-ish percent. So people do that. People go, they put it on, they go, let me find minus 50,000. And they think they're getting $100.20 from doing that. But no, they're just getting 20 cents from doing that. And I think that's one of the main reasons on these promos. You have to always read the fine print, that they highlight multiple times that the original stake of the bonus bet, you do not get back. I'm assuming their support the team is like, oh, I put it on minus 1,000. How come I only got $10 and I didn't get $110? And it's like, well, did you read? You don't get that. You don't get that at all. So that's the reason why Alex, like, who cares about parlays, whatever? Like, I'm not even getting to that point of like what you should, like specific bets or anything. Be more inclined to use your bonus credits on longer shots. Whether then, if you randomly chose just went on the board and say, I'm going to find something at plus 300 or plus 500 and just did that and didn't think about it at all, that would be infinitely better, not infinite, but very, very much better than spending an hour to find the best minus 300, right? You'd rather just randomly select a plus 300 than even go, oh, this minus 300 team really should be minus 360. It's like, you're not going to make up the difference. Look at the difference in expected value between a minus 300 and a plus 300. It's 3 times the expected value.
That's huge.
That's huge. Look, I mean, look at the difference between minus 1,000 and plus 1,000. 10x, right? Almost 11x the expected value. Minus 500 to plus 500 is 5x the expected value, right? Anything in the middle. I mean, hey, if you're like, oh, the money means a lot to me, so I mean, I'd much rather have a better chance of getting something. Fine, do it on plus 150 rather than minus 150. That's at least a 1.5x difference. A lot of times I'm using these on Alex. What I do is I do mostly props. So I will see, it's like, oh, on my NFL props, do I have multiple plus EV ones that I'm betting straight or on underdog or prize picks that happen to be in the same game? Then I go, okay, I could put 3 of these together and
Yeah.
use my $25 bonus bet or whatever,
Yeah.
and just do that and just go, here's those 3 together, right? And
Yeah.
then I get the best of both worlds. Is that those I think the lines are off compared to projections as they are. I'm getting them all together. I'm paying a little bit more of a hold, but dude, it's my bonus bet. I'm going to have to use them on something. I mean, they expire typically, typically in a couple of days that you get them.
Mhm.
So many people, Alex, let me tell you, I mean, if you take a look at the results of the polls, and this is my followers, Alex, I mean, tend to be smarter people. A third
I
of
don't
the
know. I
people,
mean, I could see, I guess there's like, I'm broke. I really need the money. I'm gonna bet this spread at minus 150. Like, I can understand the psychology behind that. I don't understand the psychology of the spread at plus 150.
because it's much more likely to hit. Oh, I'm getting plus money, but it's still a 40% chance. I don't
Yeah,
want to.
it's
People look at plus 400 and go, "This." Remember, how do people think in DFS and poker and
yeah.
like
What's
either
most likely to happen or what
right?
will
Then
happen?
once it starts getting up to minus 300, minus 400, minus 5, but they
Yeah,
go, "Oh, this team is a lock to win." And once
yeah.
it gets to plus 400, like take a look at these MMA or boxing, like Canelo was minus 500 to go, okay, there's no chance that he loses. It's like, no, of course there's a chance. It's just much lower, but it's not 1% that people
Yeah,
equate plus 400 to like it might as well be plus 2,000. Like, why am I
yeah,
just throwing my money away?
yeah.
But if you're consistently getting bonus bets, I mean, that even from a variance standpoint, there's no reason, like, especially if you're regularly, betting and on these sites. I mean, even on Underdog, these boosts that they give you, like people don't even know how to use those.
Mhm.
Right? They go and they go, okay, I'm going to put this boost, and I'm going to put it in a 5 pick because they heard that 5 picks are the highest EV way to play underdog and prize picks. And I go, well, when they're giving you a boosted payout they're going from plus 200 to plus 300 on a 2 pick. That's a dramatic increase in EV
Mhm.
now. That your boost should only be used in 2 picks now, even though anything else you'd never be using in 2 picks. And
Yeah.
they go, nope. They get stuck in their ways of like this is what it is. And then you also see the opposite. People know that like a 5 pick or a 6 pick flex on prize picks are the highest EV ways. I mean, the highest EV ways to go as long as you find 5 or 6 props that are worthy of putting in. But then they go, it's like, well, I'm not going to win them that often. It's like yeah,
You don't have
that's right.
to.
But it's like GPPs. It's like
Yeah, you
in
don't have
DFS.
to.
Right, you don't have to win them that often. You
Yeah.
win one a week, and you're up way much more than putting in 2 picks and 3 picks on Prize Pick.
And you know what? I think this is where us as poker players, we just have a different mindset. There's like a healthy disregard for money, emphasis on healthy. Um, I think the average person is really scared of losing, even if they're playing within their means. Or, even that person who's managing their bankroll correctly is very scared of losing. Now, most people don't manage their bankroll correctly. I would guess 95+% of people who are in the DFS streets and the prop streets are not managing their bankroll at all correctly. So they're even more scared. When you play with scared money, like you're just gonna lose. You might as well just go play blackjack and like have a good time, get some free
Right,
drinks or
it's
something.
more
I don't know.
thinking long term. I think it's less the fear of losing. I think it's just the lacking a long term mindset of
A
the
vision,
goal
yeah,
isn't to win. I mean, you see this in DFS.
yeah,
What's your advice for me to win today? And I go, I
yeah,
don't know what's going to happen today, but all I know is that I can give you advice that if you did it every day for the next 2 or 3 years, that the likelihood of you showing profit and a decent amount of profit is quite high. I don't know when
yeah,
that profit comes. That's you have to do that. Same thing for sports betting and prop betting and underdog and prize picks is that you get your money in good as often as possible and you'll show a profit. Oh, as your sample size gets larger. But so many people are like, "Well, I want to bet $500 today." Like how do I make money today? It's like, well, here's a 2% edge, here's a 6% edge, here's a 15% edge, but that doesn't mean that Just you're going to win more often than the odds are that the payout is offering you. But like, imagine having a 10% edge on a $100 bet is only $10 in expected value. Right?
Sure.
People think it's like, as long as I put
Just
down
get
a
10 bucks a
10%
pop.
edges,
Yeah.
right, I'm going to win all of these, right? It's like, no.
Yeah. You get 10 bucks a pop.
Right.
You know. And I noticed it. So I was involved in the Discord a lot more this season, and baseball players are a little more willing to take some risks on like a guy who isn't very good, because you don't have to be very good to be in a good DFS lineup, especially in baseball. I think they understand that in baseball. Football, I had a lot of pushback 2 weeks ago on two ends. One, it was I played Desmond Ritter and people were kind of calling me stupid. Not exactly those words, but like, that was crazy. I was like, and someone literally said, but what if he sucks? I said, well, if he sucks, I lose. Who cares? you know? And I made the other remark about Justin Fields. I was just casually saying, I don't really trust him because they're not letting him run. And I'm like, well, he's got all this speed. And I was like, I know he's got all the tools, but if the coaches don't let him run, why do I want to play him? And then someone said, well, I'm going to play him. I said, well, I might play him. I don't trust him, but the projections say to play him, so I think I'm going to play him. And it's like blew some people's minds how I don't like a guy. I don't think he's going to be very good, but I was going to follow the projections. And again, someone said, what if he throws 4 interceptions? And I said, well, then I lose. And somewhere in the football streets, it's somewhere between baseball and basketball. Basketball is a little more predictive. The numbers are a little more predictive than football, whereas in baseball, they're pretty much not predictive at all. And somewhere football in the middle, people are still very binary. Either they expect everything to be predictive or they're being a little too random. And there isn't a mindset of like just being willing to make a decision that loses some money.
And
For the greater,
you're going to lose more often than you're going to win in DFS.
of course.
That's
You're talking 90%.
my response is always welcome to DFS. It's like, oh yeah, I'm a
you're talking
GPP
like
only player,
88%.
right? And I lose. It seems like I lose like 90% of the time. I'm like welcome to you're now part of the circle. That's
Yeah.
That's your expectation. But you want to make it so the 10% of the time that you do win, you win a lot of money. That's the point. Yeah. If you're not building lineups to do that, then losing 90% of the time is going to be unprofitable.
Yeah. Like my MLB season. So I started playing tournaments about 3 years ago, and my in the money rate was somewhere in the 15% range. And I did really well. I made really good money, especially in 100-man small fields. So my in the money was higher because I was playing smaller fields and single entry stuff. This year, I think I played really well, but I was playing larger fields, and my in the monies were down in like the 12%. And I didn't get anything big, so I didn't make any money. So I just move on to next year. Like I did really well. I made really good lineups for the contest that I was playing. And it lost over the course of 6 months. Like 6 months is fucking nothing.
Right. Right. The sample sizes of DFS to normalize to within one standard deviation are insane, are legitimately insane. Like lifetimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Alex, I also wanted to touch on, we have Champions League soccer today before we get out of here. I know you don't play soccer, so I'm not going to bore you with any type of soccer stuff in general, as far as games to target and stuff like that. We have a soccer Discord channel. We have soccer projections here. The Jamino, Tuttle, Alex Hooper, they work on it. Obviously, if you could always tag me in the soccer channel. Obviously, not to pat myself on the back, but probably considered top 10 ever soccer DFS players of all time. I mean, that's where I started from, and I play all the main slates for this stuff. When using our soccer projections, okay, 2 things that you need to know. First off, lineups do not come in until an hour before kickoff for the games. And soccer teams rotate players often. Right? So you'll have teams that, the projected starting 11 is this, and then they'll announce their starting 11, it'll be 3 different players in, right? Some players tend to play more often than others. Obviously, they're more star players. So just building, I would not suggest going right now to Lineup HQ, to our soccer projections, and going, I'm going to make 5 lineups and then submit them and then go on with my day, right? Who cares that 3 o'clock it starts and 2 o'clock lineups come? Like, no, I would never suggest doing that. In fact, I don't even bother building my lineups until all the starting 11s are confirmed, and they're timely. It's not they're never late for these leagues, for Champions League and Premier League and stuff like that. Now you can get a sense of like, okay, Bayern is a big favorite, Man United is a home favorite. I'm probably targeting Bruno Fernandes. I'm probably targeting some Bayern players. Like you could look at that type of stuff, but generally, don't make lineups. The projections will change. I mean, we don't even post ownership until that point anyway. Secondly, the standard deviation of soccer players are dramatically different from one another. Dramatically, much more so than any other sport that at least I play. Meaning that if we take a look at a good example, if we go to Bayern, I mean, they have to update the projections. But we take a look here. We have Harry Kane, 13.66, and Joshua Kimmich at 13.13. Both playing 90 minutes. This is projected for 90 minutes. Right? Obviously, Joshua Kimmich is cheaper at 7K, so he's more of a value. But let's say they were the same price. Let's say they're both projected for 13. The standard deviation of Harry Kane is way higher than Joshua Kimmich. Why? Joshua Kimmich is a defensive midfielder who does come up and attack, but he's their primary set piece taker, which means he takes most of the corners and their free kicks, and those are peripheral points. You get points for shots and crosses and chances created. So Joshua Kimmich on Bayern, you'll see you'll see his score go half a point. Now he's at 1.5. 5 minutes later, he's at 3.7. 10 minutes later, he's at 5.4. Like no goals or assists or anything, but he's racking up these little pieces, right? And obviously, a lot of the crosses and set pieces that he takes could lead to goals and assists, and he could score those. Harry Kane, on the other hand, is a center forward, meaning that he's the closest to goal, but he doesn't touch the ball that often because he's getting on the end of a pass. He's not getting in and on the end of a cross. He's not doing much else where he has the ball at his feet and he's playmaking, he's crossing, no. And because he touches the ball less, he's the most likely to score on the entire team. But you'll see 15 minutes in the game that Harry Kane has 0 points, right? Because he's not doing anything else other than taking a shot when available. So maybe you'll see 15 minutes of the game, he has 1 shot and a foul drawn, and he's at 2 points. And then by halftime, if he didn't score or assist, he's sitting there with like 3.5 points. And then the second half happens, and if he doesn't score, he's going to end the game with like 6 or 7 points. And you're like, but the projection of Kimmich and Kane are the same. Yeah, but if Kane scores on those shots, Kane could put up 38 points. I mean, like the mean projection is 13, but the range of outcomes is very wide, right? So he could score anywhere from 5 to 40, right? And all those games where he scores 2 goals, 3 goals, has a goal and assist, are buoying that mean so much higher, although his median is much lower than Joshua Kimmich. Joshua Kimmich doesn't have that many 40-point games, but he also doesn't have many 5-point games. Like, his range of outcomes is much an hour. He's going to score most likely somewhere between 9 and 18 a large percentage of the time, which means if you're playing double ups or head-to-heads and stuff like that, if you had a choice between the two and they were the same price, like, you'd probably much rather have Kimmich than Kane. But in GPPs, if I told you that Joshua Kimmich was going to be 60% owned in GPPs and Harry Kane was going to be 20% owned, like, Harry Kane has a much higher ceiling, and it's worth the ownership to do that. So, like, if you don't know the players in soccer, at least the main ones, and how the teams operate to some extent, you can get quite warped on the projection numbers, especially if you're playing cash games. GPPs, a lot of these means are going to be high because of goals and assists, and that's like what you're looking for in GPP, right, Alex? Like, imagine GPP projections for like baseball that are weighted very heavy. Let's say we added.
I was just going to say this is even more
drastic
than baseball and hockey. I didn't realize this. This is even more drastic.
It's much more drastic. Imagine it's the equivalent. If you wanted to relate it to baseball, it's the equivalent of like adding an extra 10 points for a home run.
Every home run being a grand slam or something like that.
Right.
Or,
Every home, and let's
yeah,
say every home run that someone hit
yeah.
is a grand slam. Like Kyle Schwarber would project, and Aaron Judge would project for like way higher than like some other guys in that range than even guys like Acuna. But you'd be like, well, I'd much rather have like your cash game lineup would just be all guys that are like strikeout or home run busts, and that probably is not the best way to go when you're looking for the best median lineup. So that's
It's
the
kind of
main
what my
reason
lineups look
why.
like now.
Right. But I'm saying, but that's
Yeah.
why I wanted to highlight that if you're going to play the Champions League slate today or tomorrow or Premier League, if you're not aware of this type of stuff, it matters. And if you want to ask those types of questions, do so in the Discord. So, like Alex Hooper's always there, right? I'm there. Tuttle's there. That if you want to highlight, I'm not sure how Arsenal, this is my first time playing. I barely know the teams. Should I play that? I'm in GPP. Do I play Victor Osimhen or Leroy Sané at the same price at different ownership? Osimhen projects for a little lower, and I'm like, well, Sané has a higher floor, but Osimhen has a higher ceiling, and that shows that Sané has a lower standard deviation while Osimhen has a higher standard deviation. So, like, yeah, one's a center forward, one's a, obviously he's a little bit more of a playmaker, and one's a winger. So the winger is going to get more peripheral points on average than the center forward. So, like, even just looking at the formations of the teams, the guys closest to net in the center are much less likely to get peripheral points. And the guys that are more forward on the wings are more likely to get peripheral points, right? The center backs, the guys that are
Sure.
furthest from goal and in the center, are the ones that are least likely to get points,
Sure.
right? The center backs and the deep defensive midfielders. That's why on DraftKings they're priced at like 4K for a lot of
Yeah.
3,600. Those, they show up with a goal once or twice a season, but they really don't generate really much peripherals because they're never in a position to cross. They're rarely making the last pass. They're rarely in the box for it to score a goal. So you're relying on random variants that someone gets an assist from a long pass from the back.
It's not the same thing. My kids play youth soccer, and it is amazing, even in well-coordinated bunches, how the ball spreads out to the periphery. Even they're trying to get that ball in the middle, they're trying to center the ball, and it gets pushed and it gets pushed. And I've noticed it just in the last couple of years watching professional soccer, how that happens just like naturally because those midfielders in the center can clog up a lot of space. The defenders clog up a lot of space. So those left and right midfielders, they get a lot of action.
Right, because the way that typically the more defensive teams, the whole goal is to clog up the middle of the field and make you have to,
Yeah.
because crossing is like the least dynamic way of scoring. That's typically what bad teams do because you give up possession often when you cross because you're crossing into
Yeah.
a bunch of people. Skillful teams tend to not want to cross as much because they want to keep possession and pass multiple times through the middle, through that midfield, which means you get a lot of, not good attacks, right? If they can't string 3 or 4 passes together, they're left bringing it back to the back and trying again. And next thing you know, it's been 10 minutes and you're looking on your DraftKings scoring and you're going, like, where's all the points? It's like, yeah, because they're not playing wide and they're trying to weave in. They're trying to get the perfect shot rather than blast 35-yard shots, every time because they don't want to. They're too skillful to want to give up possession that easily. Alex, people can find you on Twitter, Alex SONTY.
Yes, and on the RotoGrinders streets. I will not be at Fangraphs anymore just because things have changed. They're focusing more on seasonal stuff than DFS stuff, which is fine. I disagree with it, but that's life. RotoGrinders is doing very well with me too. They've kept me very busy. So
So you'll have some play. Are you doing some playoff stuff?
I'm not doing any playoff content. I'm just focusing on football right now.
Okay.
Which is
So you'll have
I'm
your
writing
football.
a
You have your single entry stuff. I've read your articles.
Yeah, so Tuesdays I'll be writing a Prize Picks article. Friday morning I have a FanDuel article that focuses on ownership. I don't just pick out, hey, this guy's too low owned, this guy's too high owned. I try to get into concepts of ownership. I've talked about value and ownership. I've talked about tight pivots and weak pivots, wide pivots. We've talked about salary, when to spend up to be contrarian. And then, yeah, my single entry article on late on Friday.
Well, check that out. Become a RotoGrinders premium member. Click on that link in the description. Get $10 off your first month. Hit that thumbs up button. On your way out the door, hit that thumbs up button. Give me the likes. Give me the subscribes. Give me the notification bell to know when we go live. I'll be back tomorrow with Noto for a first look of the NFL Week 5 slate on DraftKings and FanDuel. Send in your questions to the mailbag. Questions at theoryofdfs.com, and I will answer them here. And anything else you're thinking about with DFS, props, and pick'em here on RotoGrinders today.